Today is John Smoltz Day on Flippin Bats, where every single week the Hall of Famer from the Atlanta Braves joins us here to talk really anything happening around the game of baseball. Pumped to have him on this week. A bunch of things happening. One, Shohei Ohtani returning to the mound in a simulated game against live pitching for the first time in 641 days. He's now back on the mound. But what I want to ask, John, because it's a big conversation out there, is should he just return as a closer and throw one inning, or should he be a starting pitcher? Who better to ask than literally the one person you think of when you think, okay, Hall of Famer that got a bunch of wins and got a bunch of saves? It's John Smoltz. So I'm going to ask him that question, and we'll see what he thinks. I'm going to talk about the kid down in Miami that made three errors and 4 innings. If you didn't see it, Ronny Simon down in Miami, 4 innings, made 3 errors, just kept piling on top of each other. He was removed from the game and was actually just overcome with emotion. So, want to talk to John about that if he remembers anything throughout his career or any player going through it like that. And who's the best pitcher in Major League Baseball? Going to talk to him about that. And then lastly, a fun question I want to ask him. Maybe not a fun question, but it happened earlier in the week in Detroit. A grounds crew guy went down with an injury. Delayed the game for about 5 to 10 minutes, and it was just tough to see. But what I want to ask John is, and hopefully get a good story, is do you ever remember anything with the grounds crew delaying a game in your career? And we'll see what he says there. So I'm pumped to get John Smoltz on the show, as we are every single week. How lucky are we? Really, really awesome. And I obviously feel very fortunate growing up a Braves fan and getting to have John Smoltz on the show every single week. So without further ado, let's get to it and welcome in the Hall of Famer, John Smoltz. All right, and as we do every single week, I am pumped to now welcome in the Hall of Famer, John Smoltz. John, how are we doing this week?
Doing great this week. We got Dodgers, Yankees. Can't get any better than that.
Oh, that is a good one. That'll be awesome. That's out here in LA, right?
That's right.
Awesome.
Yep.
So I want to start this week, John. I actually don't know if you would have seen this game or saw what happened, but there was a game earlier this week in Miami where second baseman Ronny Simon made 3 errors and 4 innings. He was just overcome with emotion, brought the tears when he was taken out of the game. Really just tough to see. The game of baseball can be brutal mentally, and that was really tough, and just error after error after error started piling up. So my question to you is, do you ever remember, or does a game come to mind with a teammate, with something like that with a teammate?
Yeah, Mark DeRosa in Colorado. Bobby was trying to get him some playing time, and he made, I think, 3 errors and 4 chances. And he talks about, what that meant and what it did to him. And, baseball is no different than any other sport. You get into slumps, you get into the funks, and you just hate to see it. It's like tough to watch when somebody can't throw a ball to a base or a
Yep.
pitcher gets the yips. And, in the game, it has a way of either defining you or ruining you. And you hope it defines you in a way that you're better for it. No one wants to go through it, but I'm sure it hasn't never happened to a lot of people on this kind of stage.
I mean, especially with the Marlins team, I wouldn't say there's a ton of veteran leadership in that clubhouse. When it comes to the Braves in that game in Colorado with Mark DeRosa, is it sort of like veterans in the clubhouse come up and you're like, hey, let's do it again tomorrow? Or do you steer clear? How does it go?
No, I mean, you look at the personality of our team was really good, and certainly Chipper Jones and Bobby Cox, and you just, if the guy can handle it, you make light of it, and it's a fluke,
Yeah.
and you realize it's never going to happen again. I think that's the biggest thing is, when you get stuck or you get exposed in a place like, let's just say golf, you can hide for only so long, and then all of a sudden you start chunking some shots that you would never chunk, and you start thinking about it too much.
Yep.
Mechanically, if you just stick with the basics, you'll be fine.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. John, you're out here in LA now. I want to talk about the Dodgers and Shohei for a second being back on the mound. Dodgers have recently had some back into the bullpen struggles, which makes me want to ask you this. We finally got Shohei Ohtani back on the mound facing live hitters for the first time in 640 days. So we aren't far from Shohei being back on a big league mound in a real game. If there was one person in the entire world that I would want to ask this question to, it's John Smoltz. A lot of people are saying, well, maybe Shohei comes back as a closer. Maybe he'd be a dominant back end of the game closer. And this is all forgetting what he wants to do going to happen. But in your mind, Shohei's coming back. Do you like him as a starting pitcher when he comes back, or would you like to see him in the closer role coming back?
Let's just say he wasn't coming back from an injury and it just was time off they gave him. I would say then it would be a little bit more tempting to put him in the closer's role. But because he's coming off an injury, you need structured,
Mm-hmm.
controlled outings that you know what you're going to get. So it would be a disservice to him based on coming back from this injury because you would have to designate games and those games may not work as a closer,
Yeah.
right? You might say, okay, he's going to pitch Monday, Thursday, Saturday. Well, you may not have the situation work out for you in your favor. So there's a lot of unknown in the closer's role that I just don't think coming back from an injury would benefit him. But you're right, the Dodgers are loaded in the pen, but they've had some struggles
Yeah.
and they've got to figure that out. They've got plenty of guys to figure it out, though. That's the issue that they have positively for them.
It's it's interesting because you've obviously done both. You've been an incredible starting pitcher, you've been an incredible closer, you've racked up wins, you've racked up saves. So it's interesting to hear you because I think most baseball fans would see, okay, Shohei's coming back from another elbow injury, another elbow surgery. Maybe it's time for him to go to the bullpen. But what you're saying is actually the structure of knowing you're going to be a starter. Sure, you throw more pitches, but you know your day. You know when you're pitching. You know how to prepare your body. If you stick him down in the closer role, you're going to have to designate a day for him to pitch, and it could be a 7-0 blowout. And next thing you know, Shohei can't pitch for 3 or 4 days.
Yeah, I think if he was healthy and he proves he's healthy down the road, that's a viable option for sure. But it'll be interesting to see when they get him back in the rotation and how he tempers that kind of adrenaline and velocity. See, the worst thing you could do to a player coming back is throwing out of the pen. That's like full throttle,
Yeah.
and I just don't think it works for someone coming back from, especially what he's coming back and how important he is. I did it out of necessity of time, and it worked in my favor for that short period of time. And then, of course, I had to do it full time because that's all they wanted me to do. But it definitely has its disadvantages when you're used at an incredible rate
Yeah.
as a closer when you're healthy.
What do you mean out of necessity of time is what you ended up needing to do it?
I missed too much time to return back for
Okay,
that
that's what I
season to
thought.
be a starter. And Bobby really wasn't keen on the idea, but I said that's all we had. That's all I could do. And it ended up, working out, but I never dreamt I was going to go back and
Yeah.
be a closer the next year.
Yeah. John, in John Smoltz's opinion, who is the best pitcher in Major League Baseball right now?
I mean, there's going to be a lot more candidates when guys get in their groove. Yamamoto still to me is, I mean, he's virtually unhittable when he's locked in the way he's pitching for the
Yeah.
Dodgers. Um, but there's so many guys that I think look, I'm a big fan of Max Fried. And when the Braves didn't
Yeah.
sign Max Fried and he went to New York, you're seeing the fruits of that for the New York Yankees. I thought they did a great job signing him. He hasn't lost yet. He's been outstanding. I think he's just coming into his own. I really
Yeah.
do. I think that he is one of these pitchers that you're going to watch now. And yeah, everyone's going to look to see if he stays healthy because it's been a little bit of a track record for him. But man, I'm enamored with Yamamoto and what he can do with a baseball and how he can turn it up. And that split finger is just off the charts.
When you start looking at a pitcher that's getting, let's say, signed as a free agent that is injury prone, like you mentioned Max Fried, and there is injury history there. You mentioned, well, Tyler Glass now with the Los Angeles Dodgers, who he signs there, there's injury concerns, and now he is injured. When you, with your expertise when it comes to pitching, do you see a signing like that? Let's say Max Fried and think, oh, there's some injury concerns? Or do you see like, do you look at mechanics and the way he throws a baseball and think, okay, maybe some of that's been bad luck. I actually think he could stay healthy. Like, at what point in your mind do you start thinking, this could be a good signing if he stays healthy?
The biggest thing for me is they've got to prove they've done something, pitched some kind of innings, right? If he's thrown
Yeah.
200 innings, I'm pretty sure, or close to it. And yeah, there were a couple stints there that got into some delay in his growth. But if you've done something before, you know how to do it. When you've never thrown over 130 innings, how can you say you know how to throw
Yeah.
190 innings? To me, that becomes more of a red flag that you just know that you're going to get that, and anything else you get might be an extreme bonus just because the track record hasn't shown any of that. To me,
Yeah.
and I look at particular injuries. Some are flukish, some are just, wear and tear, but not structural to the point where you're going to miss a full season and a half. So I do look at some of those things when you think about what guys have been through and what they've done.
Yeah. Last one for you, John, before we go. It might not be the funnest question in the world, but I think it might come a good story might come from it. Earlier this week, the grounds crew in Detroit, one of the guys that was raking the field went down with a bad injury, like injured his knee. I don't know if he dislocated his kneecap. We don't exactly know yet, but grounds crew guy goes down. Game gets delayed for 5 to 10 minutes with him sitting there on the ground. So the question I thought this just happened. The question I thought to ask you this week before we finish up is, do you ever in your career remember a crazy situation with either the home grounds crew in Atlanta or a road grounds crew?
Well, I've seen some pretty crazy storms that have the tarp has swallowed a couple grounds crew, but that wasn't delaying the game because they were obviously putting the tarp on.
Yeah.
What actually happened to me, believe it or not, was the Clydesdales were on the field making their round back when it used to be, that's what happened. And one of them got spooked. And what I learned real quickly when I was on the mound, when one gets spooked, they all stop. And they had a hard time getting them off the field. And it was getting to the point where it's like, really, we are waiting for these horses to get off the field, and massive horses. And so it felt like a 30-minute delay, but I think it was only about a 10-minute delay. And, that's a long time when you're ready to kind of get into your routine and you got 3 minutes out there on the mound. So yeah, they just stopped and everyone looked like, why did they stop? And one of them got spooked. And I don't know ultimately how they got them all going again, but they did.
So is this pregame when you were warming up out in the outfield, or you were like standing on the mound?
No, this is like what, the seventh inning stretch when they used to do it or something like that. And so I was already kind of in the game, ready to go, and it was just in between innings, and it was pretty wild.
That's incredible. At some point, I feel like the tarp monster gets everybody on the ground
Yeah,
crew. Those videos are insane.
they are.
John, I appreciate your time as always. Enjoy Dodgers Yankees. That's going to be an awesome series. So I really appreciate it as always, man.
My pleasure. We'll do
All
it
right.
again next week.
All right, just wanted to thank John Smoltz for joining us here on Flippin Bats. Always a lot of fun. Always really appreciate it. And always, every single week, you can prepare for John Smoltz to come on the show, which is really cool. One guy, we cannot let this show end to talk best pitcher in baseball and not mention the name Tarek Skubal. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to just mention the name Tarek Skubal and say he's the best pitcher in baseball. I hear John Yamamoto has been incredible. Max Fried has been incredible. In my opinion, Tarek Skubal is hands down the best pitcher in the game of baseball. But really fun conversation with John, especially the grounds crew situation. The Clydesdales holding up a game when you're trying. It was late in the game. He said like the seventh inning. You're trying to go out and pitch late in the game, and you're getting delayed by Clydesdales. It's just hysterical, to be honest with you. But really appreciate his time. Totally understand what he said, by the way. It really makes a lot of sense with Shohei. Yeah, I mean, you're coming back from an injury. Of course, you need to prepare for games properly, and you don't really get to do that when you're out of the bullpen. So an interesting angle at that as well. But I totally agree with him. Besides, I want to see him as a starter. He's a starting pitcher. He's one of the best pitchers in baseball. 2022, he was top 5 in the Cy Young voting. Last 3 years he pitched, he has a sub-3 ERA. He's one of the best pitchers in the game of baseball. I want to see him out there for more than one inning. He wants to be out there for more than one inning, so we're going to see him as a starter. I appreciate you all for listening. As always, whether you're listening on podcasts, Apple, Spotify, wherever, whether you're watching on our YouTube channel, Flippin Bats Pod, I really appreciate you all. Please make sure you're subscribed or hitting that follow button. If you're listening right now, it really helps. Leave a 5-star review as well. That does help. And if you're watching on our YouTube channel, you can see every episode. Leave a comment, like the video, make sure you're subscribed. I always hop in the comments and enjoy having a conversation with everyone that's watched. Back and forth about what's happened. And we're on all social media as well, at Flippin Bats Pod, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, all that good stuff, where we put out some really good videos after every episode and talk about when the next episode is going to be. So appreciate you all as always, and remember, until next time, my friends, find your bat and flip it.